Hello. Um, I haven't posted in a couple days because I've been sick, um, and that's a shame. But I'm starting to come out of it a little bit. I'm feeling good enough to be drinking alcohol again, which is a good sign. And right now, I'm just gonna do something kind of stupid and probably not gonna do well at all. But I'm just gonna fucking read the Wikipedia article for the history of Indonesia. I'm gonna educate myself, and if I'm gonna educate myself, why not do it on camera? You know. So there's been a couple of things where I'm like, why is it like this? Why is it like that? And the best way to learn about that stuff is to just like go study it, go read about it. So here goes. Get ready for the 100 view video, if that. Who knows? My freaking other video got like 16 views because it was blocked in Russia, even though that shouldn't mean anything. I think it just didn't get recommended. And maybe also there's a more popular video, so the recommendations for crowded. Anyway, I'm not making any sense. The history of Indonesia has been shaped by its geographic position, its natural resources, a series of human migrations and contacts, wars and conquests, as well as trade, economics, and politics. You could say that for almost any country, but I think it may be particularly true for Indonesia. Indonesia is an archipelagic country. That's a $20 word. Archipelagic country of 17,000 to 18,000 islands, stretching along the equator in Southeast Asia. The country's strategic sea lane position fostered inter-island and international trade. Trade has since fundamentally shaped Indonesian history. That makes sense. I know, the spice trade, the Dutch spice trade, was centered around Southeast Asia and India, so that makes a lot of sense. The area of Indonesia is populated by various peoples of various migrations, creating a diversity of cultures, ethnicities, and languages. Peoples of various migrations. I find that an interesting phrase. The archipelago's landforms and climate significantly influence agriculture and trade and the formation of states. The boundaries of the state of Indonesia match the 20th century borders of the Dutch East Indies. Okay, so there's the Dutch. I was expecting them to show up. The Dutch East Indies. They are a very important figure in that period of time. I'm not sure what period that might be. Looks like, if I read further down the page, maybe 1600s. But that's the Dutch East Indies is the Dutch East India Company, right? I think was the name of the company. Was it's a name that I know from period pieces and pirate-themed things. Let's keep reading. Fossilized remains of Homo erectus and his tools, popularly known as the Java Man, suggest that the Indonesian archipelago was inhabited by at least 1.5 million years ago. Superfluous. I'm hoping that if I use fancy languages, the Wikipedia editors will accept it. So fossilized remains of Homo erectus and his tools, popularly known as the Java Man, suggest the Indonesian archipelago was inhabited at least 1.5 million years ago. Austronesian people, who form the majority of the modern population, are thought to have originally been from Taiwan and arrived in Indonesia around 2000 BCE. 2000 BCE, that's a long time ago. From the 7th century CE, the powerful Srivijaya naval kingdom flourished, bringing Hindu and Buddhist influences with it. The agricultural Buddhist Sailendra and Hindu Mataram dynasties subsequently thrived and declined in inland Java. The last significant non-Muslim kingdom, the Hindu Majapahit kingdom, shoutouts to the history of the entire world. What's his name? The History of the Entire World, I guess, by Bill Wirtz. Bill Wirtz is his name. I could react to that like 5 years late, I guess. That's one of those ones that's always popular. I've seen it 50,000 times. I don't think it would be interesting. Anyway, Majapahit Kingdom. The last significant non-Muslim kingdom, the Hindu Majapahit Kingdom, flourished from the late 13th century, and its influence stretched over much of Indonesia. That was the last non-Muslim kingdom? That's very interesting. I didn't know it went back that far. The earliest evidence of Islamicized populations in Indonesia dates to the 13th century in northern Sumatra. Other Indonesian areas gradually adopted Islam, which became the dominant religion in Java and Sumatra by the end of the 16th century. Sumatra is the north, it's flipped on this camera, but the north western island, right? Sumatra and Java. Let me real quick pull up Google Maps. This video is already for nobody, so doesn't matter if I stall a little bit. Yes, this is Sumatra, and this is Java. These are, I don't want to be controversial here. It's probably extremely not controversial, but these are considered the two main islands of Indonesia, right? As far as population is concerned, I'm pretty sure Java is the most populous. Sumatra would be the second most. Borneo and Sulawesi, almost nobody there. And then Papua, I don't know. I'm going to do a reaction, by the way, to Alfie Rev's Spirit of Papua. I did a reaction. I was pretty negative in that reaction, and I decided not to upload it because I think that I was not being fair. So I'm going to do another reaction, and I'll try and be more fair. I still may not be positive, but we'll see. Anyway, going back to this, where was I at? The earliest evidence of Islamicized populations in Indonesia dates to the 13th century in northern Sumatra. Other Indonesian areas gradually adopted Islam, which became the dominant religion in Java and Sumatra by the end of the 16th century. 16th century meaning the 1500s, right? So this is like even before the arrival of the Dutch East India Company. For the most part, Islam overlaid and mixed with existing cultural and religious influences. Okay. For the most part, overlaid and mixed. Interesting. Europeans, such as the Portuguese, arrived in Indonesia from the 16th century, seeking to monopolize the sources of valuable nutmeg, cloves, and cubeb pepper in Maluku. I don't know what cubeb pepper is. Cultivated for its fruit and essential oils, mostly grown in Java and Sumatra. Sometimes called the Java pepper. The fruits are gathered before they're ripe and carefully dried. As far as I know, I have never tasted such a thing. Maluku is an archipelago in the east of Indonesia. Tectonically, they're located within, I don't care. There's Sulawesi. So this is, and there's Timor. Okay, so this is this area. It's like this area here. Okay. I mean, this is a very sparse area. Most of Indonesia is dominated by large islands. You know, you have Borneo, you have Sumatra, you have Java. And then as you go east, it's a lot of these like tiny little islands. If I were to ever visit Indonesia, of course I would spend a lot of time in Bandung. I would spend a lot of time in Jakarta and Palembang and Medan and all those places. But what I would really want to make sure I do is visit some of these small places here. Because this seems like this is where the juice is at, you know? This is where the interesting stuff is. Anyway, getting distracted. In 1602, the Dutch established the Dutch East India Company and became the dominant European power by 1610. Can you read this part still? I don't know. Following bankruptcy, the VOC was formally dissolved in 1800, less than 200 years, which is interesting. It went bankrupt, which is interesting. I didn't know. I feel like there's a bigger story behind that. I don't know that much about the Dutch East India Company, but might be something interesting. And the government of the Netherlands established the Dutch East Indies under government control. Sure. By the early 20th century, Dutch dominance extended to the current boundaries. The current boundaries, interesting. The Japanese invasion and subsequent occupation in 1942 to 1945 during World War II ended Dutch rule and encouraged the previously suppressed Indonesian independence movement. 2 days after the surrender of Japan in August 1945, the nationalist leader, Sukarno, declared independence and became president. The Netherlands tried to reestablish its rule, but a bitter armed and diplomatic struggle ended in December 1949, when in the face of international pressure, the Dutch formally recognized the Indonesian independence. Interesting. Interesting. Because this is something that I can only compare to the Vietnamese struggle for independence. The Vietnam War, infamously, it was, much more violent. Well, I don't know if it was more violent, to be honest. I assume it was. That's probably my American bias. But, So, full disclosure, I started to learn Vietnamese language last year, I guess, 1 year ago. And as part of that, I studied a little bit about the history of Vietnam and the Vietnamese War. And so the French were in charge of Vietnam before World War II, and then after World War II, they tried to regain control of Vietnam, and Vietnam didn't want to be controlled by the French. Understandably. It seems like the whole region, that's basically what happened. Like, the European colonial powers were kicked out by the Japanese, who were way worse in some ways. And then when they tried to reestablish control, the Southeast Asian people were like, no, fuck you. We're done. We're done being controlled by other people. We're our own people, and we're going to be an independent nation. So it sounds like a very similar thing happened with Indonesia. The Japanese invasion and the subsequent occupation in 1942 to 1945, which is like towards the end of the Second World War, ended Dutch rule and encouraged the previously suppressed Indonesian independence movement. I mean, the Japanese occupation of most areas was really, really horrific. So I would only assume that the same was true in Indonesia. But I don't know. 2 days after the surrender of Japan in August 1945, National Leader Sukarno, I wonder if this is that famous picture. I only know about this because of... Well, they're not showing many pictures here, but I only know about this because of a video by J.J. Not J.J. Abrams, what's his name? J.J.? I'm just... fuck it. J.J. J... Hold on. J.J. I know he... J.J. McCullough. Famous pictures. Famous photos and
Hello,
history.
friend.
Let me just scroll through until I see it. Like I said earlier, this is already unwatchable. I don't really care. There it is. This one. General Tsutomu. Okay. So maybe I'm going to get to this later. So I'm going to keep reading the Wikipedia article. We'll come back to that video when it becomes relevant. Okay, where the fuck was I? Independence movement to this evidence turned of Japan. Sukarno declared independence and became president. The Netherlands started the Dutch formally recognized Indonesian independence. An attempted coup in 1965 led to a violent army-led anti-communist purge, in which over 500,000 people were killed. General Suharto. That was not this guy's name, right? That's a different video. General Suharto.
Is this picture of a guy called General Sutomo.
Sutomo, not Suharto. Okay. Noted. Declared independence, became president. The Netherlands tried to... I'm going backwards. General Suharto politically outmaneuvered President Sukarno and became the president in March 1968. Was it just a requirement that your name had to start with an S and end with an O in this period? I don't know. His New Order administration garnered the favor of the West, whose investment in Indonesia was a major factor in the subsequent 3 decades of substantial economic growth. In the late 1990s, however, Indonesia was the country hardest hit by the East Asian financial crisis, which led to popular protests and Suharto's resignation on the 21st of May 1998. The Reformasi era, following Suharto's resignation, has led to a strengthening of democratic processes, including a regional autonomy program, the secession of East Timor. Interesting. I didn't know that was that recent. In 1998, I was alive when East Timor seceded from Indonesia. And the first direct presidential election in 2004. Interesting. Political and economic instability, social unrests, corruption, natural disasters, and terrorism have slowed progress. Although relations among different religious and ethnic groups are largely harmonious, acute sectarian discontent and violence remain problems in some areas. Okay. As you might expect. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, the first time I learned that Indonesia was majority Muslim, I was surprised. Because it's just... What is the Muslim religion doing that far east? I don't know. I mean, I guess they probably crossed the water. Yeah, okay, interesting. I want to go through all of this, but I don't know if it's a good idea to do it all at once. I mean, it took me 20 minutes to go through just the synopsis, so let me look at this picture, and then I will probably end this video, and maybe I'll do more. Maybe. None of them will get video views, but that's fine. This is just for me.
Giving a radio speech during the beginnings of the Indonesian War of Independence. As my Indonesian friend John puts it, a red and white horizontally striped umbrella shades him, with its motif, intentionally or otherwise, mimicking the Indonesian flag, vividly and proudly radiating outwards, almost akin to a national halo, escorting the radio waves that carried Sutomo's words throughout the archipelago. It seems to be a pretty widely reproduced and parodied photo in Indonesia today. And lastly, in good old Australia...
He's about to move on to something else, so I will move on to trying to find that emergence of Indonesia. Probably going to be somewhere right here, huh? Seems to be not too much about this in the Wikipedia article. Sukarno's presidency. Okay, well, I don't see the photo anywhere in here either. That's fine. I think I'm gonna probably do more of this later. Probably. But this is just kind of an easy one for me to do, and I will be doing more reactions. I got a lot of stuff recommended to me, so I'll be doing some more reactions for sure in the future. I'm starting to feel more healthy. So we'll see.